The lights went out without warning. No flicker, no warning hum. Just darkness. Thick, heavy darkness that swallowed the room whole. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, listening. Rain had stopped. That was the worst part. The building had always been loud. Rain on metal. Whined through broken vents. Distant dripping. But now, there was nothing. Silence so deep it pressed against my ears. Then I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Right behind me. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed not to. Instead, I forced myself to take a step forward, then another, until my knees hit the desk. I reached out blindly until my fingers touched the edge of the monitor. The screens flickered back on. Every camera showed the same thing. Empty hallways, empty rooms, empty stairs. Except the basement. The figure was no longer at the far end. It was standing directly under the camera, looking straight up at me. Its face was clearer now. Too clear. Skin stretched tight, eyes sunken deep into dark sockets. Its mouth hung slightly open, as if it had forgotten how to close it. The breathing behind me stopped. The figure on the screen tilted its head. Then it smiled. The radio on the desk crackled to life on its own. "You're doing well," the voice said. "Most people run." My legs felt weak. "What do you want?" I whispered. The answer didn't come from the radio. It came from every direction at once. To clock out. The clock above the desk started ticking again, but faster now. Too fast. The hands spun wildly, blurring together. I looked down. My ID badge was gone. In its place, lying neatly on the desk, was another badge. Old. Worn. My name printed on it. But the photo wasn't me. It was the thing from the basement. A sudden bang echoed through the building. Then another. Then footsteps. Running this time, circling the floor above me. The CCTV screen switched rapidly, showing flashes of movement, shadows darting through corridors, doors slamming open and shut. On one screen, I saw myself again. But this time, I was walking the halls, dragging my feet. Head down. I watched as that version of me stopped in front of the basement door. I shouted, "Don't go in." The screen version paused, then turned slowly toward the camera. Its eyes were wrong. Too dark. Too empty. The basement door opened. All the screens went black. Something grabbed my wrist. Its hand was ice cold, fingers too long, grip impossibly strong. I screamed and twisted free, stumbling backward. My back hit the wall, and my torch fell to the floor, rolling until it pointed toward the hallway. I wish it hadn't. The corridor was full. Not people. Shifts. Men and women in old uniforms. Some decades old, standing silently. Their faces were tired, hollow, eyes dull with endless nights. All of them soaked, rainwater dripping onto the floor even though the rain had stopped outside. They all wore security badges. Every badge had the same title: Night Shift, Active. One of them stepped forward. He looked almost normal, except his shadow moved a second slower than he did. "You're early," he said calmly. "Most don't realize until sunrise." "Realize what?" I asked. "That there's no exit," he replied. "Only replacements." The lights flickered once more, and suddenly I was back at the desk, sitting this time. I hadn't moved there. I knew I hadn't. The clock read 2:17 a.m. Rain started again. The logbook lay open in front of me. My hand moved on its own, pen scratching across the page. 2:17 a.m. New shift has begun. I tried to drop the pen. I couldn't. On the CCTV, the main gate camera showed something new. A man standing outside. Young. Nervous. Wearing a cheap jacket. My jacket. He looked up at the building. Rain pouring down his face. Hesitation clear in his eyes. The radio crackled. "Security to desk," a familiar voice said. My voice. I opened my mouth to scream, to warn him, to beg him to leave. But all that came out was, "Night shift is easy." The door opened downstairs. The rain grew heavier, and the clock kept ticking. The rain had been falling for so long that I couldn't remember when it started, or if it ever really stopped. The clock still read 2:17 am. I stared at it, waiting for the minute hand to move. It didn't. The ticking continued, loud and steady, but time itself felt stuck, like the building had decided this hour was enough. The man outside the gate was still there. On the monitor, he shifted from one foot to the other, pulling his jacket tighter around himself. Rain soaked his hair, ran down his face, and dripped from his chin. He looked up at the camera, unsure, uncomfortable. He looked exactly like I had on my first night. I raised my hand slowly. On the screen, he raised his hand too. I froze. "That's not possible," I whispered. The radio crackled softly, as if it had been listening. "Everyone copies themselves at first," the voice said. "It helps the building learn you." "Learn me for what?" I asked. No answer. The lights dimmed slightly, then returned to normal. The hallway outside the security room stretched longer than it should have. The far end disappeared into shadow that didn't belong to the night. I stood up, carefully this time, and stepped into the corridor. My footsteps sounded wrong. Too slow. Too heavy. With each step, faint echoes followed, like someone else was walking a half-second behind me. I stopped. The echoes stopped too late. I didn't turn around. The storage room door was open. It hadn't been before. A cold draft drifted out, carrying the smell of wet concrete and something older, like dust that had been sealed away for years. Inside, the shelves were lined with boxes. Each one had a name written on it. Not labels. Names. I saw one that made my chest tighten. Mine. The box was newer than the others. Less dust. Slightly open. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and lifted the lid. Inside were things I recognized. My old phone. A spare key from my apartment. The watch I thought I had lost years ago. And at the bottom, my ID badge, not the one I wore. An older version. The photo showed me, but tired, hollow-eyed, smiling the wrong way. Behind me, a whisper passed through the room. "That's from your last shift." I spun around. No one was there. The lights flickered, and for just a moment, the shelves were gone. In their place stood rows of people, packed tightly together, all facing the same direction, all of them staring at me. The lights steadied. The shelves were back. I ran. Back to the security desk, heart pounding, lungs burning. The monitors glowed softly, unchanged, except for one. Camera 3. Corridor. It showed me running, but I was already there. I slammed into the chair, breathing hard, and looked at the logbook. A new page had been filled. Handwriting neat and calm. Chapter 2. Acceptance Phase. The radio crackled again. "You've been walking these halls for years," the voice said gently. "You just don't remember between shifts." The gate camera flickered. The man outside was gone. In his place stood someone else. A woman. She knocked on the gate, rain pouring down her face, eyes wide with uncertainty. I reached for the radio without thinking. My finger pressed the button, and a calm, rehearsed voice, my voice, said, "Come in. You're safe here." The woman smiled in relief. The building creaked, settling, satisfied. The clock ticked once, and moved to 2:18 am. The basement door had always been locked. At least, that's what I remembered. Now it stood open. Just a few inches, enough to breathe out cold air that crawled across the floor and wrapped around my ankles. The light above the door flickered, buzzing softly, like it was struggling to stay awake. The clock read 2:18 am. It hadn't moved since. I told myself I wouldn't go down there. That promise lasted less than a minute. My feet carried me forward before my mind could catch up. Each step felt borrowed, like I was repeating a motion I had done too many times before. The stairwell swallowed sound. As soon as I stepped onto the first stair, the rain disappeared again. No wind, no dripping, just silence so deep it rang. The door closed behind me. I didn't touch it. The light followed me down, turning on one bulb at a time, always just ahead, never behind. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, bending where they shouldn't. Halfway down, I heard my name. Soft. Patient, from below. I froze. "Who's there?" I asked, though my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "You are," the basement answered. The final step groaned under my weight. The basement was larger than it should have been. The ceiling vanished into darkness, and the walls seemed to breathe slowly, expanding and contracting like lungs. Old machinery lined the space, rusted and forgotten, but every machine hummed faintly. Alive. In the center of the room stood a desk. My desk. Same scratches, same coffee stain on the corner, same drawer that always jammed. On the desk lay the logbook. Open. The pages weren't filled with dates. They were filled with my name, written hundreds of times, in different styles, different levels of neatness, different states of panic. I flipped a page, went downstairs again. He said it would help. I don't remember leaving. Still raining upstairs. My hands shook. "Who is he?" I whispered. Something shifted behind the machinery. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A figure stepped into the dim light. It wore a security uniform older than any I'd seen. The fabric was dark with rain that never dried. Its face, it was mine. Older, thinner, eyes worn down by endless nights. "You finally stayed long enough," it said. "What is this place?" I demanded. He smiled. "This is where the shift becomes permanent." The machines grew louder, their hum forming a low, steady rhythm, like breathing. "Every building needs someone to watch it," he continued. "During the day, it pretends to sleep. At night, it remembers." Remembers what? Everyone who worked alone. The walls began to change. I saw reflections, not of myself, but of others. Guards, janitors, night clerks, all standing at desks just like mine, in buildings just like this one, all alone. All of them tried to leave, my double said. Most of them did. For a while, I backed away. The stairs were gone. In their place was a dark hallway leading deeper underground. "That's not the exit," I said. "No," he agreed. "That's the next shift." The radio crackled somewhere above us. "Security to basement." My double tilted his head. "Your turn to answer." The clock chimed once. 2:19 a.m. The lights went out. When they came back on, I was standing at the security desk again. Dry. Clean. The rain hammered the windows like nothing had happened. The basement camera showed an empty room, but written faintly on the lens as if scratched from the inside were 3 words. "Still down here." The radio crackled. A new voice this time. Young. Nervous. Hello? This is my first night." My hand reached for the radio. I smiled. The rain felt colder that night. It soaked through Amir's jacket within minutes as he stood outside the main gate, staring up at the towering industrial building. The job posting had sounded simple. Night security, easy pay, quiet environment. But the building didn't look quiet. It looked awake. The security light above the entrance flickered in slow, uneven pulses, like a tired heartbeat. The windows were black, reflecting nothing but rain and his own nervous expression. Amir checked his phone again. 2:17 a.m. The message from the supervisor still glowed on his screen. Previous guard inside. Just check in at the desk. He hesitated before pressing the gate buzzer. Static answered him. Then, after a long pause, The gate unlocked with a heavy metallic click. He pushed it open slowly. The moment he stepped inside, the rain sounded distant, muted, like he had walked into a different world. Inside the building, the lobby lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled of damp concrete and old electricity. Amir wiped rain from his face and walked toward the security desk he could see glowing faintly at the end of the hallway. Someone was sitting there. The guard looked calm, relaxed, watching the monitors like he had done it for years. "First night?" the guard asked without turning around. "Yeah," Amir replied, stepping closer. "You must be finishing your shift." The guard turned slightly and smiled. It was a normal smile. "Almost. You could say that," he said quietly. Amir placed his bag on the desk and glanced at the CCTV monitors. Everything looked empty, silent, except one screen. The basement camera flickered constantly, as if struggling to stay focused. "Is that camera broken?" Amir asked. The guard followed his gaze slowly. "No," he said. "It just doesn't like being watched." Amir laughed nervously, unsure if it was a joke. The guard slid a logbook across the desk toward him. "Sign in," he said. Amir opened it and frowned. Every page looked the same. Names written over and over, sometimes crossed out, sometimes rewritten darker. At the top of the newest page was already an entry. 2:17 a.m. Replacement has arrived. Amir blinked. "I didn't write this," he said. "I know," the guard replied calmly. "Something watches back." The lights flickered once. Amir glanced toward the hallway. For a brief moment he thought he saw figures standing there, shapes darker than the shadows themselves. When he looked again, they were gone. "You'll hear things," the guard said casually, as if reading his mind. "Footsteps, voices, sometimes breathing. Ignore them." "That doesn't sound safe," Amir replied. The guard shrugged slightly. "It isn't." The radio crackled suddenly. "Security. Are you alone?" A distorted voice whispered. Amir jumped. The guard calmly switched the radio off. "They like asking that," he said. "Who does?" Amir asked. The guard didn't answer. "The rules." Instead, the guard opened a drawer and removed a folded piece of paper. He handed it to Amir. "Every shift gets rules," he explained. Amir unfolded the paper carefully. The handwriting was messy, rushed, as if written in fear. Night shift rules. Do not stare at the basement camera longer than 10 seconds. If the clock stops, do not acknowledge it. If you hear your name downstairs, you did not hear it. If you see someone sitting at this desk while you are standing, leave immediately. Never answer the radio after 2:19 a.m. Amir looked up slowly. "This isn't funny." The guard's smile faded. "I'm not joking. The moment everything changes." The clock ticked loudly above them. 2:18 a.m. Rain slammed against the windows harder, like something outside was trying to get in, or something inside was trying to get out. Amir turned toward the monitors again. Every screen flickered simultaneously. Then they all showed the same image. The security desk. From behind, showing both of them standing there. Amir's breath caught. "That camera doesn't exist," he whispered. The guard stared at the screen quietly, almost thoughtfully. "It does after a while," he said. The radio turned itself on. "Security, answer please," the whisper returned. Amir reached toward it instinctively. The guard grabbed his wrist. Firm. Ice cold. "Don't," he said. The clock ticked once more. 2:19. The lights went out. When the lights returned, Amir was sitting in the chair. He didn't remember sitting down. The monitors glowed in front of him. Rain pounded the windows again, louder than ever. He turned his head slowly. The other guard was gone. The logbook lay open beside him. His name was written on the newest line, in handwriting that looked disturbingly similar to his own. The radio crackled one last time. A familiar, calm voice spoke through it. "Night shift is easy." Amir stared at the basement camera. For a moment, he thought he saw someone standing there, watching him, waiting patiently. The clock reset. 2:17 a.m. And outside the gate, another figure stood in the rain. The building was tired. Amir could feel it now. Not in the walls or the floor, but in the air. The silence had weight, like something old leaning against him, waiting to be acknowledged. The clock above the desk still read 2:17 a.m. It had reset again. Rain whispered against the windows instead of pounding, as if it too was exhausted from falling for so many nights. Amir didn't move. He had learned that movement attracted attention. The basement camera flickered once. He didn't look at it. Rule number 1. The radio sat quietly beside him. For the first time since arriving, it wasn't breathing with static. Amir almost reached for it. Almost. Then he remembered. Rule number 5. A slow sound came from the corridor. Not footsteps. Dragging. Like something being pulled across concrete. Amir closed his eyes. When he opened them, the monitor layout had changed. There were more cameras now. Dozens. Buildings he had never seen before. Different hallways. Different desks. Different guards sitting alone under flickering lights. All of them staring at screens. All of them trapped at 2:17 a.m. A realization settled in his chest, cold and final. This building wasn't haunted. It was connected. A network of forgotten places that needed watching when the world slept. And watchers who never left. The basement camera turned itself on. Amir counted in his head. 1, 2, 3. At 7 seconds, the image shifted. The basement wasn't empty. The former guard stood there, the one Amir had replaced. He looked up slowly, eyes full of something close to relief. "You figured it out," he said, though his mouth didn't move. Amir swallowed. "Is there a way out?" he asked quietly. The guard thought for a moment. "There is," he said, "but only one of us can take it." The clock ticked. 2:18 a.m. Rain outside stopped completely. The building held its breath. "What happens to the other?" Amir asked. The guard smiled faintly. "They stay. They watch." The radio crackled softly, not urgently, not threatening. Just tired. Security. Confirm presence. Amir looked down at the logbook. The last entry wasn't written yet. The pen lay beside it, waiting. He picked it up. For the first time, his hand didn't feel forced. He wrote slowly. 2:18 a.m. Shift concluded. The basement camera went black. The lights flickered violently, then stabilized. The clock moved. 2:19 a.m. The guard in the basement disappeared. A door opened somewhere far away. A door Amir had never seen before. The air changed. Fresh, dry morning air. Amir stood up. His legs shook, but they obeyed. He walked past the desk, down a hallway that hadn't existed before, toward a soft white glow. Behind him, the monitors rearranged themselves. A new guard sat at the desk now. Young, nervous, watching the rain begin again. Amir didn't turn back. As he stepped through the door, he heard it one last time. His own voice, calm and rehearsed, coming through the radio behind him. "Night shift is easy." The door closed. The building settled. The clock reset. 2:17 a.m. And the rain continued to fall.